When my sister walked into my boardroom and announced she was taking over my company, I smiled and said, "Congratulations." What she didn't know was that I'd already planned the perfect exit. By the time she realized what happened, I was holding all the cards and she was left with nothing but debt. Let me tell you how the family extra became the one who stole the entire show. My name is Natalie Cross, and for 32 years I was invisible in my own family. While my sister Vanessa got designer clothes and college funds, I got hand-me-downs and maybe next year, promises. When my brother Ethan needed money for his third failed startup, Dad wrote the check immediately. When I asked for help with my business idea, Mom laughed and said, "Honey, maybe you should focus on finding a husband instead." But here's what they didn't know. While they were busy funding Vanessa's Instagram lifestyle and Ethan's dream of becoming the next tech billionaire, I was building something real. It started small, really small. I had $500 in savings and a crazy idea about making custom gift boxes for busy professionals. I worked 16-hour days from my tiny apartment, hand-packing orders until my fingers bled. Natalie's little hobby, Vanessa would call it at family dinners, rolling her eyes. "So cute." Mom would nod and change the subject to Vanessa's latest modeling gig or Ethan's revolutionary app that never quite worked. I didn't argue, I just kept working. 2 years later, my little hobby was pulling in $50,000 a month. I'd hired 3 employees, moved into a real warehouse, and landed contracts with major corporations. Companies like Google and Microsoft were ordering my luxury gift boxes for their executives. That's when my family finally noticed me. "Natalie, sweetie," Dad said during Sunday dinner, his tone completely different now. "We've been thinking. Maybe it's time you brought some professional help into your business." "Professional help?" I asked, though I already knew where this was going. "Vanessa has that MBA," Mom chimed in. "And Ethan's got such a head for business. They could really take your little company to the next level." My little company.
Even
When I was successful, they still couldn't see me as anything more than a child playing dress-up in the business world. But I was tired of being invisible. Tired of fighting for scraps of respect from people who should have supported me from day one. "You know what?" I said, setting down my fork. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need help." The mistake I made was thinking family meant loyalty. Within a month, Vanessa had convinced me to make her Chief Operations Officer. Ethan joined as head of technology, despite the fact that his last 3 startups had failed spectacularly. "Don't worry, sis," Vanessa said, moving into the office next to mine. "We're going to make this company amazing." Amazing for who, I should have asked. The changes started immediately. Vanessa redesigned our packaging without consulting me. Ethan wanted to build an app that would revolutionize the gifting industry, the same app concept he'd failed with twice before. "Natalie, you're thinking too small," Vanessa said during our first board meeting. "This company needs vision. It needs someone who understands scale." I watched my employees' faces as she spoke. These were people who'd believed in my vision when no one else would. Jessica Monroe, my first hire and best friend, caught my eye and shook her head slightly. She could see what was happening. But the worst part wasn't the changes to my company. It was the way my family talked about it. "Vanessa's really turning that company around," I heard Mom telling her friends at the country club. "Ethan's bringing some real innovation to the family business," Dad bragged to his golf buddies. The family business. My business had somehow become theirs, and I'd become an employee in the company I'd built from nothing. 6 months after my siblings joined, we landed the biggest deal in company history. Keller Industries wanted $1 million contract for executive gift packages. Mr. Keller was old school, conservative, traditional, the kind of man who still thought women belonged at home raising children. When he came to our offices for the final negotiations, Vanessa made sure she was the one to greet him. "Mr. Keller," she said, extending her manicured hand. "I'm Vanessa Cross, Chief Operations Officer. So excited to work with you." I watched from across the room as she charmed him, talking about our company's vision and our innovative approach. Every time she said "our," my heart broke a little more. During the meeting, Mr. Keller barely looked at me. When I tried to explain the logistics of fulfilling such a large order, he directed his questions to Vanessa instead. "Miss Cross," he said, clearly addressing Vanessa, "your company has impressed me. I think we can do business." After he left, Vanessa turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Natalie, maybe you should let me handle the client relationships from now on. You're great at the behind-the-scenes stuff, but I think I connect better with the high-level executives. Behind-the-scenes stuff, in my own company." That night, I called Jessica and asked her to meet me for coffee. "They're pushing you out," she said, before I could even explain what was happening. "I can see it happening, Nat. They're rewriting history, making it seem like this was always their company, and you were just the help." She was right. And I was tired of fighting for respect that should have been mine by default. "Jessica," I sighed, stirring my coffee slowly, "how would you feel about starting something new?" While Vanessa was busy taking credit for my work and Ethan was redesigning our website with features nobody wanted, I was planning my exit, but not just any exit. The kind of exit that would expose exactly who they were and what they'd done. I started by quietly setting up a new company, Cross Elite Solutions. Just me, registered under my name only, with Jessica as my first official employee. We worked evenings and weekends, building a client base, developing new products, creating. Everything we'd learned was missing from my original business. We did it all in secret. I also started documenting everything. Every email where Vanessa took credit for my ideas. Every meeting where Ethan dismissed my suggestions only to present them as his own the following week. Every conversation where my parents praised my siblings for turning around the company I'd built. The documentation wasn't for legal purposes. It was for something much more satisfying. 3 months into my secret planning, Daniel Ruiz called. He was a sharp business attorney who'd been following our company's growth and wanted to discuss a potential partnership. "I'd like to meet with the founder," he said when Vanessa tried to schedule herself for the meeting. "I prefer to work directly with the person who built the company." I could have corrected him. Could have told him that my sister was now running operations and maybe he should meet with her instead. Instead, I scheduled the meeting for the same day as our big presentation to Mr. Keller. The morning of the Keller presentation, I arrived at the office early. I wanted to watch my family prepare for what they thought was their biggest triumph. Vanessa had spent weeks preparing her presentation, practicing her pitch about taking the company to new heights. Ethan had finally finished his app integration, convinced it would revolutionize our ordering process. Mom and Dad were even coming to watch their children succeed. "Nervous, Nat?" Vanessa asked, applying lipstick in her compact mirror. "Don't worry. We've got this handled." As if I was just along for the ride. The presentation went exactly as I expected. Vanessa was charming and confident, presenting ideas I'd developed but allowing Mr. Keller to assume they were hers. Ethan demonstrated his app, which worked perfectly for the 3 features he'd actually completed. Mr. Keller was impressed. He was ready to sign the contract and hand over $1 million deal to what he believed was Vanessa's company. That's when Daniel Ruiz arrived. "Miss Cross," he said, walking directly to me while ignoring Vanessa's extended hand. "Daniel Ruiz, thank you for agreeing to meet." I saw confusion flash across Mr. Keller's face. Vanessa's smile faltered. "I'm sorry," Mr. Keller said, "but I think there's been some confusion. I'm here to finalize a deal with Miss Cross." He gestured to Vanessa. Daniel smiled. "Actually, sir, I think you're the one who's confused. Natalie Cross is the founder and CEO of this company. I'm here to discuss acquiring her services for my clients." The silence in that room was deafening. "That's not possible," Mr. Keller said, looking between me and Vanessa. "Miss Cross here has been my primary contact. She's been representing the company." "Representing it, yes," Daniel said calmly, "but not founding it, not building it. Natalie built this company from nothing 3 years ago. Everything you've seen, every system, every client relationship, that all started with her." I watched my family's faces as the truth settled in. Vanessa looked like she'd been slapped. Ethan's confident smirk disappeared. Mom and Dad seemed genuinely confused, as if they couldn't process that their extra daughter had built something this significant. "Natalie," Vanessa said carefully, "why don't you tell Mr. Keller about our partnership structure?" Partnership. Even now she was trying to reframe theft as collaboration. "Actually, Vanessa," I said, standing up slowly, "I think it's time for complete honesty." I turned to address the room, Mr. Keller, Daniel, my parents, and my siblings, who had spent months convincing themselves they'd rescued my failing business. 3 years ago, I started this company with $500 and a dream. I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, building every system, developing every process, earning every client. When it became successful, my family decided they wanted to be involved. "Now wait a minute," Dad interrupted. "No, Dad, you wait." The firmness in my own voice surprised me. For 6 months, I've watched Vanessa take credit for my work and Ethan implement solutions that actively hurt our operations. I've listened to you and Mom tell everyone how proud you are of them for turning around my company. Vanessa's face was turning red. "Natalie, you're being emotional. This isn't professional. You want to talk about professional? Let's talk about how you've been telling clients that you founded this company. Let's discuss how you've been negotiating deals without consulting me. Let's review the email where you told our biggest supplier that you were now the primary decision maker." I had printed copies of everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to erase me from my own story. "Mr. Keller," I said, turning to our potential client, "I need to be honest with you. This isn't how I run business. This isn't the company culture I built. And effective immediately, it's not my problem anymore." "What do you mean?" Vanessa asked, but I could see in her eyes that she already knew. "I mean, I resign from my own company. Today, right now." The room erupted. Vanessa started shouting about contracts and obligations. Ethan demanded to know how I could abandon the business. Mom actually started crying, asking how I could do this to family. But Mr. Keller did something unexpected. He started laughing. "Ma'am," he said, addressing me directly for the first time, "in 30 years of business, I've never seen someone handle a hostile takeover quite like that." "Hostile takeover?" Vanessa sputtered. "This is family business. This is just a misunderstanding." "Miss," Mr. Keller said to Vanessa, "this is exactly the kind of unethical behavior I refuse to do business with. If you'll lie about founding a company, you'll lie about everything else." He stood up and handed me his card. "Miss Cross, if you ever start another venture, please call me. I'd be honored to work with someone who values honesty this much." After he left, Daniel made his own announcement. "Natalie, my offer stands. My clients need someone with your integrity and expertise. If you're interested in a fresh start, I can guarantee you'll have more business than you can handle." That's when I dropped the bomb that changed everything. "Actually, Daniel, I'd love to discuss that. But I should mention, I already have a new company." You could have heard a pin drop. For the past 3 months, while my family has been busy taking credit for my work, I've been building something better. Cross Elite Solutions is already operational, already profitable, and already serving clients who value authenticity over politics. Vanessa's face went white. "That's impossible. You would have needed approval from the board." "What board?" "This is a privately held company, my company. And now it's your company. Good luck with it." I gathered my papers and headed toward the door. "Wait," Ethan said desperately. "You can't just leave. What about the contracts, the clients, the employees? What about them?" I asked. "You and Vanessa have been telling everyone how much better you could run things. Here's your chance to prove it." Jessica was waiting for me in the hallway with a box of my personal items and a huge grin. "Ready for the real adventure?" she asked, asterisk. Within 2 weeks, everything fell apart. Ethan's app integration crashed during their first major order fulfillment, losing 3 clients in 1 day. Vanessa, who had never actually managed operations, couldn't figure out why inventory was disappearing. And orders were being delayed. The employees I'd hired and trained started quitting. Our biggest supplier canceled their contract after Vanessa missed 2 payment deadlines, Mr. Keller's deal. of course, was completely off the table. Meanwhile, Cross Elite Solutions was thriving. Daniel had introduced me to 6 major clients in our first month. The employees who'd quit my old company came to work for me, bringing institutional knowledge and genuine loyalty. We were pulling in more revenue than my original business ever had, with half the overhead and none of the family drama. But the best part was the phone calls. "Natalie, honey, maybe we can work something out," Mom said during week 3 of watching her golden children's empire crumble. "Perhaps there was some confusion about your role in the company." Confusion. That's what she called months of erasure and disrespect. "Mom, there's no confusion. I built a company. Vanessa and Ethan destroyed it. I built a new one."
The stories?
Pretty clear. Dad tried a different approach. "Natalie, family is more important than business. Maybe we can all sit down and figure this out together." Family. The same people who'd spent 3 decades treating me like an afterthought were suddenly concerned about family unity. "Dad, you're right. Family is important. That's why I'm building something I can be proud of, with people who actually respect me." 3 months after my exit, Vanessa called me directly. "Natalie, I need your help." I was sitting in my new office, bigger than my old one, with a view of the city skyline and walls covered with awards from satisfied clients. Business was so good we were hiring our 10th employee. "Help with what, Vanessa? The company's failing. We're 3 months behind on orders. Ethan's app never worked properly, and I can't figure out your old systems. We're going to lose everything, your old systems." Even in defeat, she couldn't acknowledge that I'd created everything from scratch. "That sounds difficult," I said calmly. "Natalie, please. I know we made mistakes, but this is still family. Can't you at least consult with us, help us fix what we broke?" The woman who spent 6 months taking credit for my life's work was asking me to save her from the consequences of her own incompetence. "Vanessa, let me ask you something. When you were telling clients that you founded the company, did you think about family then? When you were redirecting credit for my ideas, were you thinking about family loyalty?" Silence. "When you convinced Mom and Dad that you and Ethan were the real brains behind the operation, was that family love?" "Natalie, here's what I think happened. You saw something successful and decided you deserved it more than the person who built it. You thought I was too weak, too grateful for family approval, to fight back. You gambled that I would always choose family peace over personal respect. You were wrong." 6 months after leaving my own company, I got a call from a bankruptcy attorney. Cross Gift Solutions, my original business, was officially defunct. Vanessa and Ethan had managed to destroy in 6 months what it had taken me 3 years to build, but that wasn't the end of the story. Daniel Ruiz called that same afternoon with news that made everything perfect. "Natalie, I have an interesting proposition. Cross Gift Solutions is going into bankruptcy liquidation. Their client list, their remaining inventory, their equipment, it's all going to auction. Would Cross Elite Solutions be interested in acquiring those assets? I would have the chance to buy back my own creation at a fraction of what it was worth when I'd left it." The irony was beautiful. 2 weeks later, I walked through the warehouse where I'd once worked 16-hour days building something from nothing. The same warehouse where Vanessa had moved into the corner office and Ethan had installed servers for his broken app. Now it was empty except for liquidation tags on everything I'd once owned. "How much for the entire lot?" I asked the bankruptcy official. $50,000 for everything: inventory, equipment, client contracts, intellectual property. $50,000. Less than I'd originally invested, and a fraction of what the company had been worth 6 months earlier. Sold. When the paperwork was finalized and Cross Elite Solutions officially owned all the assets of my former company, I did something I'd been planning for months. I threw a party. Not a celebration of my family's failure, but a celebration of the employees who'd stayed loyal, the clients who'd followed me to my new venture, and the friends who'd supported me when my own family couldn't. Jessica gave a toast that night that I'll never forget. "To Natalie," she said, raising her glass, "who taught us that sometimes the best way to win is to walk away from a game that was rigged against you from the start." Mr. Keller was there too. He'd become one of our biggest clients and a genuine friend. Young lady, he told me, in all my years of business, I've never seen someone turn betrayal into victory quite like you did. Your family thought they were taking over your company. Instead, they gave you the motivation to build an empire. An empire. That's what Cross Elite Solutions had become. We now had 22 employees, offices in 3 cities, and revenue that dwarfed anything my original company had ever achieved. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was personal. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued my contributions, respected my decisions, and gave me credit for my work. I wasn't fighting for scraps of recognition or begging for basic respect. I was finally truly visible. A year later, I was featured on the cover of Business Weekly magazine. The entrepreneur who built an empire twice was the headline. The article detailed my story, how I'd started with nothing, built a successful company, lost it to family manipulation, and then built something even better from the ashes. Vanessa called the day the magazine hit newsstands. I saw the article, she said. Her voice sounded different, smaller, humbler than I'd ever heard it. Did you? Natalie, I owe you an apology, a real one. I was jealous of what you'd built. And instead of being proud of my sister, I tried to take it from you. I was wrong, completely, unforgivably wrong. It was the first time in my entire life that Vanessa had admitted fault without deflecting blame or making excuses. I appreciate that, Vanessa. Is there any chance? Could we maybe try to rebuild our relationship? I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'd like to try to earn it. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, desperate for family approval, willing to sacrifice my own recognition for the sake of keeping peace. That woman would have immediately forgiven Vanessa and invited her back into her life. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Vanessa, I'll consider it. But it would have to be on completely different terms than before. I won't go back to being invisible in my own life. I understand, I wouldn't expect you to. Maybe we could rebuild something. Not the old dynamic where I'm grateful for any scraps of acknowledgement they threw my way, but something new. Something based on mutual respect instead of family obligation, or maybe we couldn't, and that was okay too. 2 years after my dramatic exit, Cross Elite Solutions was acquired by a major corporation for $28 million. $28 million. More money than I'd ever dreamed of when I was packing gift boxes in my tiny apartment. But the money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was what happened at the acquisition celebration. My parents were there. So were Vanessa and Ethan, who I'd slowly begun rebuilding relationships with on my own terms. Daniel Ruiz was there with his family. Mr. Keller had flown in from Chicago. Jessica, now my business partner and best friend, was there with her husband. And Kids, the CEO of the acquiring company, asked me to give a speech. 2 years ago, I said, looking out at the crowd of people who'd supported me through the hardest period of my life. I thought success meant getting my family to see my worth. I thought if I just worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, achieved enough, they would finally recognize me as an equal. I paused, finding Vanessa in the crowd. She was crying, but she was also smiling. I was wrong. Success isn't about making other people see your value. It's about refusing to accept treatment that diminishes your worth, even when that treatment comes from people you love. The applause was thunderous, but what meant the most to me was seeing the faces of my employees. Former employees from my original company who'd chosen to follow me into uncertainty rather than stay in a place where loyalty wasn't valued. Building this company twice taught me something important, I continued. Sometimes the best thing you can do for the people you love is to stop accepting less than you deserve. Sometimes you have to become impossible to ignore. After the speeches and celebrations were over, Jessica and I sat in my office looking out at the city lights. Any regrets? She asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. No, I said finally. Not one. Leaving my own company was the best thing I ever did, because it forced me to build something better. And more importantly, it forced me to become someone better. Someone who doesn't accept being treated like the extra in her own life. Someone who writes her own story. I corrected. Someone who makes sure her exit becomes the show. And that's exactly what happened. My family thought they were getting rid of a problem by pushing me aside. Instead, they created their biggest competition. They thought they were writing me out of the story. Instead, they gave me the motivation to write my own. Sometimes the people who love you will try to make you smaller because your success makes them uncomfortable. Sometimes family will try to steal your spotlight because they can't imagine sharing the stage. When that happens, you have two choices. You can fight for scraps of recognition in a system designed to keep you invisible, or you can build your own stage and create your own spotlight. I chose to build my own stage. And when I walked away from everything I worked for, it wasn't an exit, it was an entrance. The entrance to the life I was always meant to live, visible, valued, and completely, unapologetically successful. That's how the family extra became the star of her own show. And let me tell you, it's been one hell of a performance. What would you do if your own family tried to steal your success? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of triumph over betrayal.